let's talk about the Mandela effect in a totally different way, in a completely different context. I think this will be very helpful for those who feel that they are suffering from the Mandela effect. Now, I don't mean suffering in the sense that there's some kind of disease or malady, but rather just in the sense of typical emotional distress or concern and so forth. So, what is the Mandela effect? Well, go ahead and look it up if you haven't run across it yet. It's basically the idea that when a whole group of people know for a fact that something is a certain way, and yet it's not that certain way that a whole group of people say it is, then there's this discord between people's memories and what appears to be factual. So that's the Mandela effect in a nutshell. Let's move on. Before we go on, I would like to just interject something small, something that I wrote a few years back. And here it is. Peace becomes you. Peace becomes you in every way. Why not go to peace directly? Why not actually do it? Okay, that done. Let's move on. Why did I write that? Well, a whole bunch of years ago, I experienced peace, and then I experienced a deeper peace, and then a deeper peace, and so forth, until what I experienced was just this fantastic tenderness. It wasn't my tenderness. It was, I don't know, I couldn't have created that degree of tenderness. It was just this tenderness that just came over me and through me, in me, whatever. And it continues now, even though I can speak, like anybody else might speak. I can cuss, shall we say. I can talk in whatever way. I feel this tenderness. And that tenderness is so strong that there's no way I can not feel tenderness to each person. And I find that that would be highly problem-solvingness-ally if others felt this kind of tenderness. I mean, I've felt plenty of tenderness previously in my life, and then one day, as a result of an ancient unknown process, which it seems that so far nobody's been interested in, because of this process, I had this amazing tenderness. I mean, it was orders of magnitude stronger than any feeling of tenderness I'd had in my most sweet and tender moments. I mean, to not mince words, it was 1,000 times stronger than what I'd felt before. This would solve a lot of problems. Imagine a room of 10 people, a room full of 10 people, and all of them have this tenderness. Are they going to be fighting? Are they going to be petty? Are they going to be involved in things like greed? Well, no. But at this moment, that's an utter fantasy, and that's not going to happen. It sure is not going to happen. Okay, so let's move on. Well, it could happen. But not now. The Mandela effect. I became aware of it maybe a year ago, just in the sense of, there's this thing called the Mandela effect. But I didn't look into it, and I had no idea what it really was. I ran into it again a little over a month ago, and I thought, wow, okay, let's run a test of this Mandela effect. Lots of logos have seemed to change. lines in movies, names of movies, all sorts of things seem to have changed, and large swaths of the population have experienced things changing. Let's look at the most famous example, perhaps, that of the Berenstein or Berenstein Bears. Well, many people remember distinctly Berenstein or Berenstein with a S-T-E-I-N ending. In fact, from what I've seen and tallies other people have made, 90% of people or more, maybe it's 95%, remember Berenstein, S-T-E-I-N. Some pronounce it Stein, like in Einstein, S-T-E-I-N. So there's an E. However, if you look it up, or if you look at any of the Berenstein books, they all say Berenstain. Wikipedia says it's always called Berenstain, and so forth. Well, what's up? Do we have this mass delusion? Personally, I was one of the 3 people on this side of the planet that had never heard of the Berenstein Bears. So in a way, that makes me slightly objective regarding this particular Mandela effect. So if all these people, 9 out of 10, remember it distinctly and will swear up and down that it was Berenstein, not Berenstain, S-T-A-I-N, completely different sound, plus it has the word stain at the end. 90% or more of people say, no, I know for a fact, I read these books my whole childhood, or I read these books to my kids over and over again, or I learned to spell with Berenstein books. I had to be very careful about, what the spelling is and what the sound is connected to the spelling. Many people say this. Others say, I had these discussions again and again with my teacher or with my parents or with somebody else. Is it Berenstein or Berenstein? Which one is it? So many people have ample reason to know for a fact that it was Berenstein or Berenstein, and know for sure that there was no A at the end of it. It was not Berenstain. I find this very difficult to discount. Either I say, okay, human memory is so terrible that people can have elaborate circumstances where they're investigating something, maybe call it trivial, but still, it's this very specific thing and very precise thing. Is it an E or an A? Is it stain? Is it Stein? Steen? Stain is very different from Stein or Steen. Stein or Steen, those are 2 pronunciations of S-T-E-I-N. So do we have 90% of people who have this complete cognitive ridiculousness, or is something else going on? Well, I decided to do a test. I said to myself, well, okay, if all these other things are changing, and if this is a phenomenon, I'm not saying it is. I was a bit on the fence, not knowing what to make of this. And I still don't know what to make of it. But anyway, I decided to do a test. My background is in art. Before art, I was a physics major. I studied physics my whole life and very in tune with scientific methodology, studied the philosophy of science, blah, 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 yada, yada. So I'm going to do a test. 1-person empiricism. Just like, is the supermarket open or closed? Has it recovered from the flood? Somebody comes to me and says, it's recovered from the flood. That's 1-person empiricism. Am I going to go with that? Sure, I'm going to go to the store. I'm going to trust in that person. Unless I have some really good reason not to. A person would be a fool to say, oh, well, no, forget it. I'm not going to go to the store until there's proof. I want a clinical trial to see if that store is open. That's ridiculous. So one-person empiricism does matter. So here's what happened. For a month, the past month, I've been intensively studying road signs, committing them to memory, becoming very clear. There's this detail here. It's this big. That line is this wide, not that wide. It's this wide. There's an angle here. There's an angle there. The pedestrian sign has the head as a circle and is detached by this amount from the rest of the body. There are no feet on the pedestrian in the pedestrian sign. There are no hands on that pedestrian symbol, and so forth. There are bicycle signs, no bicycle signs, no left turn, no right turn, and so forth. So, every day I would be in the car. My wife was so kind to drive most of the time. And every day, perhaps every single day of the last month, in the car, I notice signs. Okay, that sign hasn't changed. It's exactly the same. The colors are the same, proportions the same, the overall composition, etc. Everything's the same. Next day, okay, it's the same. Next day, it's the same. There's no difference. I've got it all added up in my head, everything. My background has been in art for many, many years. I've done tons of drawing, very representational stuff and other non-representational stuff. And so I can look very precisely, a very strongly trained visual sense. That's not to say that anybody's any better than anyone else. For example, I just stumbled. I said any butter. So I just stumbled. That's proof that I'm not any better than anybody else, okay? I don't believe in that kind of crap. So I have the skill, however. And so I've committed all these signs to memory, day after day after day. They're all the same. I'm not seeing any changes. And then 3 days ago, we're driving along, and on the right side of the road, there's a small no parking sign, typical with the red circle, and then the word parking, and then a slash in front of a red slash in front of the word parking. Okay, so what's the big deal? Well, the big deal for me was the slash was going the wrong way. I had seen slashes for a month. They're all going a certain way, and then one day the slash is going the wrong way. And so I'm like, whoa, okay, let's check this out. So I checked it out online, and in every state I could find in the United States. Yes, I'm sorry, this is limited. This is, see, I stumbled again. This is limited to just the United States. I apologize for that, but I'm in the United States right now. So every single sign in U.S. history that is a no blah, blah, blah kind of sign officially is constructed, painted with a slash going a certain way. But 3 days ago, the slash suddenly changed. 4 days ago, the slash is different than you can find in U.S. history. In other words, for a whole month, I was looking at signs with a slash going one way, a way that is false. In other words, every single day, I was mentally taking note to a sign that is apparently not the way the signs have ever gone. So do an experiment yourself. Picture how the slash goes in a no bicycle sign, a no left turn sign, a no U-turn sign, a no parking sign, a no truck sign. Picture how that slash goes. And then go outside and find some of these signs. I think if you're a person who has been noticing signs, if you pay attention to those kinds of things, you are going to be stunned. So the upshot of this is that my own one person, in this case, first person empiricism, tells me something's up. I'm not able to dismiss this. There's no way I can dismiss this as faulty memory because I pointedly and exactly noticed and made very precise mental notes of traffic signs. I know how they go. I've memorized them again and again and again over the past month, every single day. And the slashes go the wrong way. And supposedly, all through U.S. history, they've gone the opposite way than they went 3 days ago, 4 days ago, 5 days ago, 6 days ago, 7 days ago, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 days ago. Now, I'm not actually excited. I am feeling this amazing peace. However, I do have a little excitement, and that excitement is to try to communicate that it's not helpful to discount human memory. If we discounted human memory of Berenstein, for example, then that's equivalent to discounting the memory of every scientist alive. Scientists may balk and say, well, wait a second. But the memories of people are relevant to the sciences. If we are going to say that people who've had conversations, multiple conversations about STEIN, if we're going to say that those people have bogus memories, even though they know the memories in detail, then how do we know that the memory of any scientific data item is not faulty? As goes regular day-to-day life, for a scientist, regular day-to-day life includes looking at instrumentation. Oh, the scientists looked through the scanning electron microscope's readouts. Okay? Oh, but whoops, the scientist kept making the same memory mistake. They saw Stein when actually it was Stain. I think it's the same thing. So unless we mistrust human memory across the board, let's not pick and choose. Let's not cherry pick and say, oh, well, those, and those human memories are faulty. But our scientific memories, they're all verified. How do we verify scientific memory? Well, other scientists. It's not different. There's no way to super objectify unless one wants to pretend that one is God. None of us is God. I'm not God, you're not God. I mean, we can say metaphorically or come up with ideas of unity of everything, but that's different. So, what's the upshot? Well, let's look at quantum physics really briefly. What does quantum physics say about reality that's different from the 19th century? Quantum physics began with Max Planck and Albert Einstein, and then followed by many others, and it began about 1900, maybe the very latest 1800s with Max Planck musing over this idea of a quantum to solve real physical problems, where scientists were coming up with numbers of infinity when, like infinite energy. Imagine an oven with infinite energy. Well, that was the kind of result that scientists were getting. And Max Planck realized, hey, this isn't going to fly. What if energy is quantized in discrete energy levels? Then we don't have an infinite amount of energy in an oven, for example. So Einstein, Planck, and others developed various forms of quantum physics. And what's the upshot? Well, the upshot is that quantum physics is informational. The basis of quantum physics is information. Information, according to quantum physicists, is how reality runs. Reality runs on information. You can call it a simulation if you like. That doesn't mean we are in a matrix designed by some evil beings. Maybe we are. I don't personally feel that, but I have no way to understand it definitively one way or another. But if we live in a simulation, if we live in flows of data, matter and energy are not fundamental to reality. Now, this idea has not percolated through the rest of the sciences. So science in general, and certainly pop culture, believes in a material world. We're not living in a material world, though, unless we want to throw out quantum physics. Oh, let's throw out quantum physics. We're still going to use laptops recording for YouTube, which use transistors, which use photocells, which were both developed due to our understanding of quantum physics. We're going to throw out smartphones and say, oh, well, they work, but they work through things that we accidentally did. No, they work. Cell phones, mobile devices work because of quantum physics, because humans learned quantum physics. They learned something about how reality works. And quantum physics says reality is based on information, not matter and energy. Well, if reality is based on information, that takes us back to Plato and other ancient philosophers. Plato had this idea of what we now call Platonic forms, a realm of what he called ideas. Sometimes we call them Platonic ideals, and so forth. You may say forms and ideas or ideals, they're not exactly the same. Well, they're all involving the idea of an informational substrate or overarching informational domain, level, plane of existence. So, based upon all of that, who are we to say that that informational substrate, what underpins reality as we know it, that informational substrate maybe can change? Who are we to say that we know that it can't change? If the informational substrate can change, then it's no longer Sex in the City. It's no longer Interview with a Vampire. It's no longer the Berenstain Bears. It's no longer road signs with a slash going a certain way. We don't have any scientific proof. Well, how does science roll? Science rolls by new perceptions, new data, new speculation. Speculation is looking at something from different angles. That's what it means. Spec means eyes, okay? So without speculation, science is dead. It doesn't even begin. And without human thought, which is informational, science doesn't happen. And yet, among other things, science cannot prove the existence of human thought, because readouts on a computer of scans of brain activity, those are scans of brain activity readouts. Those are not thoughts themselves. So science can't even detect the thing that science uses to do science, namely thought. So let's be less high and mighty about science. Let's look at new data. That's how science really happens. That's what Einstein did. Instead of saying, oh, you got a problem in your experimental methodology, obviously because your data conflicts with our assumptions and our predisposition to looking at science. That's not what Einstein did. Einstein saw, oh, gee, there's new data here. I'm going to see how this new data conflicts with basic assumptions. And if it does, I'm going to change my basic assumptions. That's happening now. This is one person's empiricism coming to you live at this second, but by the time you see it, it ain't going to be live. Okay, have a fantastic day, and let us not drop the ball on this Mandela effect because, hey, if a road sign can change direction in terms of where the slash goes, and I saw it happen. I mean, I didn't see the change in process, but I saw it from one day, from a whole string of days, from a whole month of seeing the slash, noting the direction of the slash, the width of it, etc. I noticed from one day and then to the next, it was different. I'm not going to throw away all of science saying that every scientist's memory is false, because that's what I would be faced with if I'm going to blame it on memory. So I take it to be new data. This is new data. It's not a clinical trial. How do we do a Mandela clinical trial? Well, nobody's going to fund that, at least not now. So we're going to rely on the same kind of data we get when somebody says, oh, the store's open now. The restaurant's open. Have a great day.